Hey guys, June 2026, 2025, and I'm here with your after hours recap. So, what can we really say? It's a bull market, and you're being led up by semiconductors, AVGO, your Nvidia's acting fantastic. SMCI, we talked about it on pre-market broadcast, just trying to come out of this consolidation, looking fantastic, right? Your Nvidia at an all-time high, your AVGO at an all-time high. Your Palantir touched all-time high today. Came off a little bit, still a little bit choppy, but all-time high. Spotify at all-time high. JP Morgan all-time high. I mean, guys, the list goes on and on. And I said this a few weeks ago. When your market's being led up by semiconductors and by banks, you're really not going to knock the market down. Sure enough, that remains true. Even a name that I do own, CrowdStrike, nice to see a continuation and an all-time high. What can be said? It was awesome. New buys for me today. I did buy myself a copper name, FCX. Nice to see it working. SCCO was the other one that caught my attention this morning. A little bit better of a move. I was watching this thing at about 101 and a half or something, and closed really nicely. And then I bought CCL, a cruise liner, as a high volume close setup. Nice to see this one working as well. RCL looking fantastic, new all-time high. And then you've got your hotel names looking pretty decent, right? Your Hilton, your Marriott, not names that I necessarily want to own, but acting fantastic. I wrote down a few names today, and Tuesday, you had a really, really nice, kind of up day for a bunch of names in the market. Yesterday, kind of a nasty down day in terms of breadth, but a lot of those stocks, they just came right into ascending moving averages. And, it's something that I've been talking about in the nightly watch list video in the room, and that is you want to be focused on these charts against ascending key moving averages. And one of the names that a couple of the fellows bought in the room yesterday was your ALAB, right? It comes right into the ascending slash flattening 200 simple moving average. You get your 620 setup, your risk is at low of day. And then an awesome 12 plus point move more, almost to $100 today, 14-point move from your average, just effectively in 24 hours. Really, really nice to see. Same could be said for a name like Shopify. Today comes into the flattening 20, and then a bounce right from that level. Beautiful. A name like Toast that's just kind of was getting obliterated yesterday, bounces right at the 50, holds the high volume close, and then effectively off to the races all day long. So buying off of key moving averages has really been helpful. Kind of just adjusting the mindset where you're like, hey, yes, I'm trying to buy a gap up in FCX. Copper's looking really, really nice and not a crowded sector at the moment. And then, meanwhile, buying these pullbacks still into ascending moving averages is proving to be pretty fruitful. So, kind of will keep that mindset. Buys into the 20 simple moving average continue to work until they don't. But, really nice to see a name like Toast, a name like ALAB, a name like Shopify, and then really I wrote down a list of stocks, right? Whether you're talking about NBIS today, you get this up day, you get a nasty down day, you get a little bounce again off the 10 and the 20, and all day ripping. AVAV, really nice continuation from the earnings gap up, right? This is, more evidence of how strong of a market we're in, right? Another big up day, pickup in volume. InnoData, another really nice one, takes out prior day high. That looked like a good spot to get involved. And again, what did it do yesterday? Came and found some support right at the rising moving average, gave you your 620 setup, and really nice follow through from there and continuation today. Speculative stuff like LAES waking up and coming to life. Again, not a name that I necessarily love, but pretty big base here, been holding up pretty well. A stock BBAI, nasty kind of a down day yesterday, really nice push today. I noticed the battery name ENVX, getting back above the 200 simple moving average on a big pickup in volume. QS is another battery name, huge pickup in volume, absolutely massive 35% move from yesterday's close. Boy, do I keep going. HSAI was another one that I noticed today. This one's trying to go, and I think this is like LiDAR. I saw news today with Uber that they might do their own fleet, and they hit a new high. Sad to not be in this one. 87 was the level that I was watching, and took off from there really nicely. and a new 52-week high and all-time high for Uber. Alongside that one, I noticed Pony. They're into the autonomous vehicles as well. Boy, what else was there? Core Scientific got news that they're being bought out by CoreWeave. That ignited this huge move. Big, big, big volume. I had been talking about Iron looking pretty good, and this one's off to the races. Continuation as soon as Core's news hit. Iron was off to the races, even some more. God, what else did I notice? Hut, I think, looks pretty dang good, trying to establish itself above the 200. Again, crypto related, but also data center related, which is kind of why I like Hut the most. APLD, although CoreWeave sold out of their entire position, as soon as that Core's news hit, right, APLD got picked up. BTBT, even the doggest of the dogs one, again, this is way down here, but got picked up on some massive volume today. Just if you're crypto related, if you're data center related, probably I would avoid a BTBT truthfully. But again, just goes to show you that there's some super big FOMO going on out there. What was the other one? Cypher was another one that I noticed got picked up on really big volume as soon as that Core's news hit. God, was there more? Riot, another one of these picked up. It's like they're all effectively taking off one behind the other in some kind of sympathy fashion. Really, really nice to see, this kind of participation within the whole sector. God, what else was there? Rocket Lab, new high today. Right, a little bit of a rejection yesterday at that left side peak, but not really on a pickup in volume. And then today, again, push out on big, big volume, new high on a Rocket Lab. Boy, was there anything else? Yeah, Joby, and right behind this thing might be Archer. Joby, a little bounce off the 20. Archer. So speculative money is still flying around. Some of the more extended ones, some that have already gotten their love. If you're like an Oklo, again, still digesting near the lower half of the range today. So, I wouldn't be too surprised if this thing digests or pulls back a little bit further. So kind of avoiding these speculative nuclear names at the moment. And Quantum, same deal. For the most part, your QBTSs of the world, still kind of continue to stay heavy and float lower. So, speculative money is flying. These small cap, mid cap kind of names are going. Really nice base breakout for a name like WMB today. This one was on the watch list yesterday. Super, super nice, big, long base breakout. Been talking about WMB for a while. Didn't get involved in this one, but guys, it's been great. ANET was on the watch list last night. Back up over the 200 simple moving average. Nice to see this one going. AAOI, another name, has been rocking here for the past few days. COHR, this one was brought up to me yesterday. Did not buy it. Really nice to see this continuation today. So it's just been awesome. And then again, for buying stocks off of, these key moving averages, you're talking about something like Shopify or Toast or A-Lab yesterday, really nice continuation. And then again, you're being led up by semiconductors. You're being led up by banks. Guys, it's a bull market. Treat it like one. Pullbacks into ascending moving averages continue to be buyable on the daily until proven otherwise. But don't just like randomly buy the dip. Wait for them to start to curl on a smaller time frame. Get yourself positioned. Risk off to low of day. It's been the minor adjustment that I've been talking about in the nightly videos in the room. And, it's nice to see that some guys have made that adjustment. Some people bought Toast today. Some people bought Shopify today. Some people bought A-Lab yesterday. So, there's somebody on Twitter, Nathan. Hopefully he gets to watch this video. I did, been seeing him make these typical buys off of ascending moving averages, and they've been working really well. These like effectively undercut of a key moving average and then rally back through. Really, really nice to see. You could see how effective it is in an uptrending market, and we're quickly putting back on some exposure, which is really, really nice. Still have my ARK long, and this thing's doing nothing wrong. Have some CCL today. I got rid of PanW, and I ended up buying some CrowdStrike yesterday. This name was digesting, didn't do anything wrong. Today, new all-time highs. I bought some FCX today. I had KGC yesterday as a gold name. Gold really didn't do too much today. In fact, it finished red and KGC out. And it, nice little pivot here. If this thing gets going over 16 bucks, potentially for some ads. And then, I'm pretty giddy I caught an absolutely massive short. It's been such a choppy month for me, and I caught myself a super, super nice short in OST. I had a 911 short today, and this thing just started to got its dumped so hard. It's hard to see, but was getting short effectively right in here, and then this thing just we were talking about it in the room. Halted down. This thing was just wash sailed all the way up. For anybody who's unfamiliar with these, effectively these are like your CGTLs. Your CLEUs, right? They're just wash sailed on the way up, and then there comes a day where they receive their colonoscopy and they get killed. So it was really tons of fun to be in an OST. Boy, that was super enjoyable and fully covered, sub $1. So tons of fun. Completely made the month on just a single trade. So I'm a little giddy. And then again, we're in a super good market. Stocks that a recent IPO like a KRMN continues to go higher, new all-time highs. A stock like CCJ for the nuclear sector acts absolutely incredible. Just nonstop. A smaller name like UEC it's a little bit it's a little bit of a laggard, but nice little base here. It's trying to set up above the 200. There is merchandise everywhere you look. There is big stocks everywhere. There's robotics names going. I saw something like Serve getting picked up a little bit today. I saw something like PDYN getting picked up today. Like I said, just everywhere you freaking looked. Stocks were making massive moves. Your InnoDatas, your HSAIs, your IRINs, your cores, your HUT. And again, if you just stick with it and you have a process, you have a setup, you should be coming across stocks like WMB in your process. Whether or not you take them or whether or not they go on to work, that's a whole nother question. You have to manage risk in real time, but still doing my best to try and get myself repositioned. And then, it's okay for stocks like Palantir to not do a whole lot today. You got to be careful as to where you buy these things. They're just, you try to buy it in the morning and then it dumps. And again, there's no proper setup here for my style of trading at all. So just kind of waiting for some things to come into their ascending 20 simple period moving average. And again, something like an AVGO recently did that in here. Kind of bummed about Uber. That did it perfectly against the 50. Something like IBIT did it perfectly against the 50. I could just go on and on and on. That's just kind of how things have been best bought for the last 5 weeks. I didn't do the best job recognizing that in real time. Took me a couple of, choppy weeks to get my mind right, make the adjustment. We've made the adjustment. Guys in the room are nailing that trade, so it makes me super happy that the adjustment has been made. And it's definitely one that I recommend for everybody. Unless things are gapping up like an AVAV out of a really clean setup and then giving you a high volume close, or maybe something like CCL, or maybe something like a WMB, like a nice flat base, still buying off of an ascending moving average, again, like Shopify, proved to be pretty fruitful today. And again, you don't know if this is going to hang in there, but your stops effectively are well at lows with very defined risk, tight setups. Again, somebody in the room, I know a few guys in the room are long A-Lab, and then you catch a 13-14% move in just 2 days. So really awesome to see. Nice to see the follow through. Nice to see so much merchandise, particular in the small cap space, right? The IWM looked pretty weak yesterday, and today broke and took out yesterday's highs. We are hanging out just underneath the 200 SMA. Do we reclaim it tomorrow? That would be, in my opinion, absolutely awesome. Super bullish, in my opinion, and I think could be a super fun summer. I don't know. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. We still have to continue to focus on our setups. But boy, if it's data center, AI, robotics, LiDAR, batteries, cameras, it's on fire right now, and it's acting well, and it just seems like, you can kind of throw a dart and hit bullseye at the moment. Those are kind of the best environments to trade in, and the IWM is not even above the 200 simple moving average. So exciting market, lots of fun. It's been kind of whippy, kind of back and forth, but it's nice to see how well things are working out here. Um, Not much else to say, honestly, as it relates to that. Going to continue to try and get myself situated in some of these stocks that are acting really, really well. And then, we'll see what cybersecurity names can cook up. I still like a name like potentially Rubrik. If it can get back over the 20 simple moving average. I still like a name like TMDX if it can finish shaping up. I still like a name like SE potentially, and then I still like some of these speculative names that I mentioned. As long as they're in the hot theme, and right now, like I said, the hot theme feels like it's robotics, it's the lidar and the cameras, it's self-driving, it's AI, it's data centers. It looks freaking awesome. And it's a fantastic market to be a small fan of small caps and mid caps, and hopefully that continues going forward, and we can get some pullbacks into these ascending moving averages, and we can continue to get some follow through. But really, really nice job, trying to get repositioned and not losing too much hope when things are looking a little hopeless. And they're just kind of running away from you. Pullbacks into these ascending moving averages are gifts. Toast gave us one. A-Lab gave us one yesterday. Shopify another one today. Do we follow through? You really don't know, but you need to manage risk in real time. But as long as your market's being led up by banks and cybersecurity and semiconductors, you know, yeah, I'm not going to be bearish. That's for sure. You can be bearish on Chinese wash sales stocks that are ripping higher every single day on wash sales. Their day comes to roost. Study a name like CLEU, study a name like JYD, study some CGTL. This isn't new. This isn't a common occurrence. This is it's not a rare occurrence. It's more of a common occurrence, more than we might actually believe. So they're good to study. Made for a super, super fun trade today. Made my month. So, kind of in some really good spirits here. And yeah, we'll come back tonight. We'll do our job. We'll make the watch list video. And then for the rest of you, hopefully this video finds you guys well. And I will see you guys bright and early for pre-market prep. Cheers.